Not all weekends in recruiting are the same, and this weekend is exactly why.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. It's Recruiting Thursday. It means we're joined by Locked On recruiting expert and Auburn Daily recruiting insider. That's Brian Smith on this Recruiting Thursday. And the recruiting coverage throughout Locked On is brought to you by our friends at LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. Brian, when you look at the list of visitors that are coming to Auburn this weekend, it's a who's who. I mean, we were talking before we clicked record here. This weekend is going to be just absolutely littered with incredible talent walking around Auburn's campus.
Yeah, it's funny that you look at Auburn's list this weekend. You got kids committed to SC, kids committed to Alabama. You got kids that Auburn has already got committed and a handful of really highly touted four-star players as well. This is one of the best groups of recruits going to any one campus in the nation this upcoming weekend.
Yeah, and this is kind of what we've talked about with what Freeze and the staff have been trying to do is build relationships, and then when it's time to cash in and get these guys to commit and make that push over the summer so they can start looking ahead to 2026 even more in the fall, this is what they could do. So the headliner here, one, because he's a five-star, two, because he's a quarterback. Julian Lewis is expected to be at Auburn this weekend. And it's interesting when you look at all of these folks that are coming, a lot of these guys are committed already to Auburn. Is that by design? There's like, okay, Julian Lewis, the guy who would really catapult this class into being elite, let's make sure we've got all of our dudes that can constantly be selling Auburn from the player point of view as well.
Well, I ran into Ryan G the other day, the kid that's committed, tight end from the Atlanta area at Milton High School, and he even said that he was going to take his official visit this upcoming weekend because he wanted to spend time with Julian. He obviously knows how important it is, him being a pass catcher. Totally get it. But this is also a group effort. I'm sure that having Caleb there, having Devin Williams there, etc., those are important parts of your program moving forward. So they're trying to sell as well. Absolutely. You want kids there when you have other top guys there. And it's not just Julian either. Eric Winters is going to be there. Daryl Johnson's going to be there. They have a lot of really talented players. Herbert Scroggins. I think this is by design. No doubt about it.
Yeah. So what should Auburn fans expect? I know that's an impossible question to answer with 100% certainty, but should we expect there to be progress made with Auburn potentially flipping Julian Lewis from USC?
He had a good visit last weekend, but everything I've heard has been positive. And if he's taking the visit this weekend after another great visit to SC, then there's still room for him not to end up there. He would have just shut it down and not taken the visit to Auburn. So they didn't do well enough. And Auburn is, for as long as you and I have known, it's the number 2 school or the school trending with him. So this is their chance to get ahead of Southern Cal this weekend. Why wouldn't they be able to make up ground and or pass them? You're 2 hours away from them at most. It's pretty easy for mom and dad to get to see their kid. I think Auburn's got a pretty good shot here.
Another big name, you mentioned him real quickly there, Daryl Johnson.
Yeah.
Another Georgia guy, committed to Alabama, listed as a linebacker. What do you see with him, and what are you hearing about him as far as Auburn's chances?
He committed fairly early to Bama. 247's got him as the number 49 player in the country. Just for ramifications here, this is a ball player. Trendy linebacker, very athletic, can play in space, can play hybrid, can play will. I don't know if anybody's going to flip him, but when he got the commitment early, I'm like, I bet this kid still takes visits. Auburn is one of the first ones to get anything set up with him, and I don't think Georgia's in play. If that is correct, then Auburn's probably as good a bet as any to do it. It's hard to flip Bama recruits, as we all know, but this isn't a Nick Saban team anymore, defensive players. So I wouldn't be shocked. And the fact that he's doing it this summer, not all that long after he's made the commitment to Bama, I think there's a chance here as well. So Auburn's got a shot. They get him on campus this weekend.
The only recruit that we may have talked about more than Julian Lewis is Eric Winters, just because we've been talking about him for so long.
I know.
He's here this weekend. I'm pretty sure he's got like a date set in the future, like next month. But so, I mean, I don't know if he should be on Pop Watch or not, but this is just a guy that Auburn has been courting and pursuing. And it seems like Auburn's been leading for him for forever. What are your thoughts on Eric Winters coming this weekend?
I don't think he's going to end up at Georgia. At one point, that's where I thought he was going to go.
Okay.
I think they're going another direction. Miami's after him and some other schools, but Georgia was the main cog in the wheel that I was worried about for Auburn to overcome. And maybe that comes back around, but they're recruiting a bunch of guys at his spot. I think Auburn is clearly the team to beat here. If they can get it done this weekend, it wouldn't shock me. I think it's end of the month. He's got a commitment date.
Yeah.
I don't put a lot of stock in those. He's been rumored to committed to Auburn for 4 months, 5 months?
Seems like it. Yeah.
Yeah. So if he made the decision this weekend or shortly thereafter, it wouldn't surprise me. But I think everybody totally expects him to sign with Auburn. That's obviously the most important part. Great football player.
Right. So if you're Freeze and this staff and you're kind of one of the guys who's going to be making these pitches to these players, these uncommitted players, especially, or folks that are committed elsewhere, what's the main thing that you think they're going to say? What's the main quiver in the arrow, or arrow in the quiver, rather?
Family. Just from being around Freeze a few times that he's talked about recruiting, he says he wants to find kids that fit Auburn. Do we fit you? And do you fit us?
Yeah.
I respected his honesty with that, because I don't think it's that hard to sell Auburn. I mean, you're an Auburn grad and you grew up here. You know the deal, but not everybody understands it. So you got to visit and find out. I think they'll find most of these kids will. I've met a lot of them. I don't think it'll be that hard. And then they're not going to try to force anybody to come here. They want kids that truly want to be there. They want to build from within. Obviously, they needed a lot of portal kids the last year or two, but I expect that to dwindle, and you'll see more and more high school kids every year, because Auburn won't need the transfer portal players. So this is an important class. This is an important weekend for that. They got to build their culture through the high school ranks.
Yeah. I mean, Auburn's added 2 really talented players since we last spoke, Brian. Let's jump into what that means for this class and what you think about those guys in just a moment, right here on Locked On Auburn. And today's show is brought to you by our friends at Game Time, the free Game Time app. It's the best place, the best way, the easiest way to buy tickets for anything you can possibly imagine. I use Game Time anytime that we're going somewhere. I've used them to buy tickets. I've used them to buy tickets for music events, for concerts, for college football games, for NFL games. It's so easy, guys. And the first 2 times I used it, I really kind of tested them. Like, do you really have the lowest price listed available? And I did my research. I couldn't come anywhere close. So now it's just saved so much time, because it's like, okay, this truly is the easiest and most cost-effective way to buy tickets to any sort of event. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, Brian, let's start. I guess we'll go in chronological order here. Broderick Scholl, the offensive tackle, commits to the Tigers. He's a guy we've been talking about for a long time too. He makes it official. And the interesting thing about this is, I remember when Carday Smith committed to Auburn, and it was like, okay, they've got him and they've got oh my gosh, the other offensive tackle.
You're talking about
Tavares Dice. And you and I had the conversation of like, okay, well, what does this mean for Scholl? What does it mean for any other offensive tackle that they call? Clearly everybody's cool with it. Clearly everybody's cool with just stockpiling offensive tackle and offensive line talent, and we'll just figure it out later.
I'm okay with that, and I know you are, without asking, because we've had this conversation on and off air.
Right.
When was the last time Auburn had great offensive line recruiting classes? It's been a while.
Oh, they haven't done anything like
this
in forever.
Let's think about it. We've gotten higher expectations with Auburn since last season, because they did well in the portal. I mean, they did.
Yeah.
Percy, you could argue, is the most important guy they got, because if you don't have a left tackle in the SEC, it ain't going to end well. How often are you going to get arguably the best left tackle in all of college football that hit the portal? He was conservatively top 5, probably top 3. They needed to get classes like this so they don't have to be put in that spot again. So that's part of it. Dice could play left tackle. I think Broderick could play it possibly. He's a power guy too, but he's got great feet. You can't turn down guys like that because you don't know when you're going to get another chance to get this many. So I'm all for it. Somebody may transfer out of that group at some point. Who cares? It is what it is. Best player's going to play. So Broderick Sherrill's a dude. He wants to come, and he did. Come on down.
Yeah. As far as him, the football player, not the roster management side of it or the recruiting side of it, but just him as a football player. You've watched a ton of his tape.
Yeah.
To you, what stands out the most about Scholl?
His explosiveness. When he comes out of his stance, doesn't matter if it's pass pro, if he's going to just drive block, or if he's going to do combo block, move to second level, it's all out. You can tell he really likes football. He doesn't just go through the motions. He wants to devour the guy in front of him. So having a little bit of edge like that, there's nothing wrong with it. And he's 6'6", 280, 285. He's got great feet. That's the kind of guy you can work with and do a lot of things. So I think he can play guard or tackle. It really doesn't make any difference. He's just a very good football player.
So when you look at all of these offensive tackles that are committed right now, and we'll go with the main 3 here, Dice, Scholl, and Smith, is there one of those that you kind of look at and say, all right, it's probably going to be this guy that's not a starting tackle with the other 2 and maybe asked to scoot inside to guard?
I would say Carday, just because he's so powerful. I mean, it's not that he can't play it, because he can.
Sure. Right.
But he has the frame to weigh 325 and be your right guard that you need to lean on 3rd down and 1.
Yeah.
You need a guy like that in the Southeastern Conference just because of the defensive tackles are a little different. And if you look at like what Nick did with a lot of the guys ended up playing left tackle for him, they started guard, moved out. It's the same kind of thing. Maybe his senior year he plays left tackle or something. That's possible. But I'd imagine everybody will try out at tackle, then 1 or 2 will move inside, because you got to have 5 guys. You got to have starters. Mm-hmm. And if he can get to the field first by playing guard, I doubt he's going to care. Most kids don't. So Carday's got the frame to do it.
Yeah. You, do you like, we talk about the importance of in-state, winning in-state stuff, but when you see Auburn go out and they're being more aggressive with guys that are in Tennessee, they went out and got the best player in Oklahoma with Scholl. How much does that matter to you? I mean, you've been following recruiting trends for forever. When you see coaches start to do that, does that do anything different in your mind as far as how you look at the class holistically?
This is a phenomenal topic, because this year, above any that I've ever seen, there really aren't boundaries anymore. In my lifetime, Penn State signed maybe 5 kids from California. They just got a kid from Mater Dei, arguably the best program in the last 40 years that everybody wanted. They never even get a sniff from those kids.
Yeah.
Auburn gets the kid from Oklahoma. When does Auburn recruit Oklahoma? The border thing is kind of over. And I know people want to get the local kids and all that. You just got to take the kid that wants to come.
Right.
Bama has stopped recruiting in state minus like the first 5 to 8 kids on the list and just said the heck with it. They were getting rings out of it. Kind of hard to argue with the success. So it's really the trend for everybody. Auburn was just one of the last ones at the party because they've done so well. Alabama, Georgia, Florida, a sprinkle of Mississippi or South Carolina, and that was it for as long as I know. But now you're getting kids in Oklahoma, Texas, everywhere else to visit. If they're good enough, you got to take them. So if you don't, they're going to Bama or Georgia. Like Bama and Georgia do it. So you have to as well. It's the new norm. I
mean, that's what's kind of so fascinating about the Alvin Henderson recruitment process.
Yeah,
a kid from Elba, and like he's going to Penn State. I mean, I don't think he's actually going to go to Penn State, but it's just interesting to me. It's like that would have never. You mentioned Penn State specifically a second ago. It's like that would have never happened.
Oh, zero chance. They wouldn't have even sent him a piece of mail. Seriously, like they didn't recruit outside of their realm at all. They had like one player from Florida in over a decade.
Yeah.
So Penn State recruits nationally now. They've never done that before. It's wild.
Do you think Auburn could recruit nationally under Freeze, or do you think it's a situation where you're in Alabama, you don't need to?
It's a little of both. I mean, they're not going to dominate Alabama in any way, shape, or form because everybody recruits her. I mean, remember now, Ohio State just got the best player in the country, arguably at corner out of this thing. Anything is possible anymore.
Team offered, sure.
Yes, I mean, Auburn's still trying to get him, and they very well could, but anything is possible. So out of the top 10 kids, you want to get half. I know Auburn fans would love to get more than what Alabama does in state. That's going to be hard most years, but this year they might. First-year staff at Alabama, they need to take advantage of that. Get 5 to 8 kids in state, and then wherever they come from after that, Florida, Georgia. Like Georgia, I think is as important, if not more important. It always has historically when Auburn's been good. Cam Newton, among others, is from Georgia. So those are the 2 main states. And then, you get 1 kid from Mississippi, you get 3 kids from Tennessee or Florida. It doesn't matter. But if a California kid wants to come, Carter last year, the offensive lineman, I think he's going to play early. That's a dude. Why not? So I think Auburn will recruit a little more nationally. They've done it 2 years in a row. I think we're at a trend now.
Yeah, I think so. All right. So Auburn also landed the commitment from what I think is a very interesting prospect. And you've got thoughts on him as well. So let's discuss that in just a moment right here on Locked On Auburn. Brian, when you look at Bryce Diaz, the teammate of Blake Woodby up in Baltimore, Maryland, who many expect Woodby to be a part of this class as well. But when you look at Diaz, some folks have him listed as a safety. Most places have him listed as a linebacker. But if you watch his tape, like you could also see him potentially being an edge rusher at the next level. I mean, he can do it all.
It's bizarre. When I found his information from the Under Armour camp from a few weeks ago, he ran in the 4.5s, and that's electronic for those you don't know. I've been to a ton of these camps. I mean,
so that's legit. Like it's a
true
like 4.5. Yeah.
Like looking down the gun barrel when somebody runs a 4.5 or less, those dudes are smoking it. And this is a kid that's over 200 pounds. At 208, he ran like 4.54, something like that. That's an NFL kind of time. And this kid's got another year of high school. But like what you said, he plays at St. Francis, one of the best programs in the country in Baltimore. They had him as a stand-up outside linebacker rushing the passer. Think Lawrence Taylor, that kind of player. And he wreaked havoc. Even when they double teamed him, there's a play he got a sack because he's so relentless, came back all the way around, coverage sack, and he gets the play. He just plays hard, spin moves, speed, power, change of direction. He has all those skills. But there are rumors like Auburn might look at him as an off-ball linebacker. He could play over the nickel. I don't even know where they're going to start him at.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to say he looks like a toothpick, but like at 208 pounds, he looks pretty thin. So that's
and he's over 200 pounds already. It's kind of wild.
I mean, he's built like a boxer. Like God gifted him a little differently. He's not your normal physique. What's he going to weigh in 2 years after Auburn's strength and conditioning program gets him? 228, 232, something like that? That guy's probably going to have the position that he needs to play that week. Then the week after to be different. I talked about that on Auburn Daily yesterday. Like, I don't know for sure. I love him as a pass rusher, but there's not much film of him doing anything else because he was so good at it. And at the high school level, nobody's going to stay in front of that kid. That's, he's going to murder most of those guys. So, but I think he's going to be able to drop in coverage, and as physical and athletic as he is, if he can pick up scheme, playing him at will linebacker, he'll run by the guys. Trying to get out on a sweep or something, he'll beat him to the point of attack, make plays for loss. There's so many things to like about him. I will be shocked if he doesn't contribute pretty early at Auburn.
Yeah, I mean, he's like you said, he's a gifted kid, like physically, athletically, mentally. I mean, he seems like his first step is really good and instinctive. But this is one of those off-season camp success stories, Brian, where you see a guy that's like, okay, I just need to see you with my own eyes. Like, is what I'm seeing on tape legit? And clearly it was, and he liked Auburn, and Auburn clearly liked him. What do you take from these camp stories? I mean, you've heard and seen thousands of these.
From talking to coaches for over 20 years about this, there's almost every major program will have a kid come to their camp each year. They're like, who's that? They don't even know the guy, but he stands out and they get discovered. Even if they know a little about him, they may have a question because like with Diaz, he played, as we talked about a moment ago, okay, he's an edge guy, but he's 6'1.5", 208 pounds. Where could we use him besides that? Seeing him in a camp, there's nowhere to hide. They can tell you what to do and you do it.
Yeah.
And he wanted the offer because right after he got it, like, he's a Tiger. So it's
They shut recruitment down. It's like, oh, wow, he wants to be here. Yeah.
When was the last time a Baltimore kid wanted to come to Auburn? That's just so random.
Yeah. Talk about recruiting nationally. Good
that's about as national as it gets. So Auburn is not recruiting Maryland a lot, but now they are. That's a great point, Zach. The point of the whole thing, though, he must have done all the things they wanted because, again, the only thing we saw in film was pass rush. At these camps, they're going to make him drop into coverage, see how he takes instruction. So it's vital. You get to see how you communicate with that kid. It's the best way for the guys to do evaluations is they get to give the instruction.
And that's the other side of recruiting, and I'm guilty of this too. Like when you hear, a coach is good at recruiting, you think of, okay, that guy's really good. It's obvious. Everybody watching, even folks that like we talked about this with Malik Autry. It's like, you don't have to point out who Malik Autry is when you go to an Opelika game, like, okay, yeah, people are going to want him to play for their college football team. But the other side of recruiting is finding guys like this. I mean, this guy was unranked everywhere but Rivals a week ago, and now he's ranked everywhere. And you got to assume that's only going to go up now that he's on everybody's radar. And so to me, the other side of the coin with recruiting is finding guys like this, being aggressive, getting him on campus, doing whatever it takes, because he's only going to shoot up the rankings now, Brian.
Yeah, I mean, if you do your own evaluation, you had him at camp, no offense, and all my buddies do these rankings and stuff. You don't care what he's ranked by those services. I can guarantee, and a lot of the guys in the coaching profession don't pay attention to him at all anyway, but for whatever reason, he got on their radar, and even though he's at St. Francis, which is one of the best programs in the country, he was lower down the list among St. Francis prospects. Auburn didn't care, and they got it verified in front of their own eyes. So I agree with you. I think his stock will rise, especially if he plays a little bit more than just pass rusher this fall. But Auburn's obviously seen that. Whatever they did with him at camp this weekend, it worked out, and good for him. That's a great story because that's what makes college football recruiting so unique. There's a guy like this every year, comes out of the woodwork. I didn't know who he was 3 days ago. I had no idea.
I didn't either. I was told the day before, like, hey, Auburn's about to get this guy. But, oh, okay. And then everybody, the coaches and, people on social media were like hinting at things. And I'm like, I texted one of my folks and I'm like, is this the Diaz kid? And they're like, yes. I'm like, oh, okay. All right. Like that happened real fast. So
it's a great story, man.
Yeah. Good for him. And then his teammate in all this is kind of who we heard about first was Blake Woodby. And it seems like he's going to commit anytime now. Another talented kid, a corner from Maryland. It's just kind of amazing.
Yeah, it's the same high school. They're both the same friends. By the way, Auburn is loading up at corner. I don't know what's going on there, but that you never have enough guys that can cover in today's world, and Auburn is making sure of that. So there you go.
No question. Top 5 class still on the table for Auburn, Brian?
If they get Julian Lewis with how they're recruiting on defense right now, they'd be in pretty good shape.
Yeah, I think so too. Brian, how can people check out everything you've got going on right now?
auburndaily.com and at FBScout_Florida. Lord only knows there's plenty of recruiting stuff to follow right now because we are in the heart of it. We're about a week away from just commitment palooza across the country. It will be wild. Auburn, I would say, will get 3 to 5 commitments within the next couple of weeks. So it's going to be fun.
June and July are going to be insane. It's going to be insane.
100%.
So be sure to click that like button, subscribe to the channel because we'll have you covered every step of the way. Brian, thank you so much. Be sure to tune in tomorrow. This has been Locked On Auburn.